everyone, and welcome to another video on my channel Belinda's Dog. We're showing different things about gardening or how we live and what we work on at the moment. And this week it's about baking. Everyone or a few people have asked me how to actually look after a sourdough starter. So I'm going to show you how I do it. It's really not rocket science, it's pretty easy. I even did it wrong in the beginning and it still worked, so just have a go and try yourself. So much cheaper, you don't need yeast. You don't need any yeast, you just use your sourdough starter and that makes the bread go makes it fluffy. So yeah, all you need is basically water, flour, that's to make the sourdough starter, and a bit of salt to make the bread afterwards, and that's it. So I'm gonna show you right now how my sourdough starter looks like. I haven't taken it out for so long, so yeah, let's go into the kitchen and I'll show you how it looks right now. So this one is my sourdough starter, and this one is actually kefir you make with milk and kefir grains. Let's take our sourdough starter out. So this is just a cheesecloth and rubber band around it, and it sticks very much. It's a very sticky thing. So yeah, it's still bubbly a little bit because I actually fed it about 5 days ago. Now I'll quickly give you a rundown of how to make a sourdough starter from scratch. After feeding your sourdough starter every day for 7 days, after 7 days it should be ready to start baking. So usually you weigh on how much sourdough starter is left in here. So if that's maybe, I'd guess, if that's 100 gram of sourdough starter, then you add the same amount of water and flour to it. So you can always, it's always double as hungry as it is. So for example, this is 100 gram in there. Then you take 50 gram of flour, unbleached. You can also, I usually use white flour, but you can also use rye flour or whatever. You shouldn't change too often because the sourdough has to get used to the different flour. But I've changed it already a little bit, once or twice. I flipped to wholemeal flour, and then back to white flour, and it's perfectly fine. But they say it takes 1 or 2, 3 feeds to get used to. So yeah, I never weigh, to be honest. I did it in the beginning and now I'm a bit lazy because we actually don't have a good scale for heavy things like this. So I just basically have a look. Now I know how the consistency feels like, so I just chuck some flour in and some water in, mix around, and done. And before I actually feed it, I just took a little bit out into that bowl. Just because I know once I feed this amount and then I feed it another time, I know it's gonna just grow over the jar, out the jar, so I don't need that much sourdough starter when I want to bake tomorrow. I need maybe like this amount. I think that's about 300 grams in that jar, so that's all I need. So now I've got that much left. You can't see it very well, but it's that much left. The rest is in that bowl, and now I'm gonna feed it this amount. So maybe it's just 50 gram now, so I'm gonna feed it 25 gram of water and 25 gram of flour, so it makes 50 gram, double the amount. Let's have a go. Again, I'm just guessing. Yeah, that should be enough. And then I stir it around with that guy. 50%, that's about right, sort of. Yeah. Sticky, wet, but not too dry, not too wet. That's why my jar is so beautifully dirty. It sticks everywhere. That's the only sort of... That's probably why they actually made it the easy way with yeast. Dried yeast. Just chuck it in, you never have a mess like this. That's how it looks now, after mixing it around a bit. Now I chuck this on top again. And I want to... Now it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I want to bake tomorrow morning. So... yeah, that I have tomorrow, the next day I'm gonna have fresh bread. So I just leave that out now. So it's always a little bit of a trying out in your area, in your climate, with your flour, depends on which country you live. Yeah, so it has so many things come together that you can't really say exactly how long you need to keep your sourdough starter on the counter. So right now it's pretty hot, and I would think maybe in like 3 hours from now, let's say, it's definitely hungry again. So I want to always, when I take it out the fridge, I give him 2 feeds at least. It's better more, but then I have too much sourdough starter and I'm not wasteful, I don't want to throw it out. So I give it 2 feeds that I have enough, more or less, to do my 800 gram recipe. And so I feed it like the day before, and I feed it in the morning. And in the morning I make sure after like an hour and a half, 2 hours, make the test with, you can see in the other video that I made already with my sourdough recipe. You can do the float test, so you take a little bit of sourdough starter out and put it in water. If it floats, that's pretty much perfect, and you can use it to bake. Yeah, and then another thing to know with that sourdough starter, if you're gonna bake every day, that's perfectly fine. That would be, you know, then you always have a really healthy sourdough starter and you can just use it every day, obviously. But normally we're not a bakery, so most people want to maybe bake on the weekend. So your sourdough starter is like you're a pet. So a pet you need to feed, and you don't want to get him too hungry for too long, because then he would get moldy. For me it never happened, and I've left it so long in the fridge for just, yeah, weeks and nothing happened. But that's what I mean. So if you want to just bake once a week, then you use it to bake it, and then after you've finished with baking, you give it another feed. Maybe you have like this much left, just always leave a little bit left over, put it in the fridge, and then you leave it there until you need it, because the fridge slows the fermentation down. So it can go easy without food for a whole week without getting moldy. As to be said, like, I didn't feed it for 3 or 4 weeks in the fridge and it was fine. It was just completely flat, like there weren't any bubbles in it and stuff. But you feed it again, take it out and leave it outside, and it comes back. And also when you make the sourdough starter, they always tell you also to throw it out. But again, don't throw it out. Make a pancakes out of it for breakfast or something. And to be honest, I didn't realize that you have to throw some out. When I started, I thought you just add the same amount, double the amount as you would now. Because now you don't really need to throw it out unless you have too much. Here you can see the rubber band, so it has fermented double the amount of what I had. Then I added more after a few hours and fed it again. Now I had this much just when I fed it, and now it has to ferment. After this fermentation I had again half more, and then this is when I used it, and then after I've used it, that's how much I had left, so barely anything. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe. And yeah, next week is probably something about gardening, but definitely not about baking. I'm not sure what we're gonna do next week.